Well, let me first start off with saying what an amazing essay. So some of this you're going to hear again. I think you took most of my thunder. Pastor Brian, thank you for that invocation. It was beautiful. Mayor Pro Tem McKellar, Town Council, and citizens of Butner, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak with you today. Now, before we came out here, we heard the tornado sirens and the hurricanes. So for those of you Army veterans, it brings up a familiar phrase. That's, if it ain't raining, we ain't training, right? I've been the operations supervisor of Camp Butner for the past 7 years. And whether it's enjoying a meal in many of the fine restaurants in town or just having a quiet day on Holt Lake, I've really enjoyed my time in this town. I'm not from here, but you've made me feel like I am. The soldiers at Camp Butner that are training there have always been greeted with pleasantness and warmth wherever we go, and we're truly thankful for that. I'd also like to say thank you to my wonderful family that came here today, my wife, my mother. My father-in-law, TJ Smith, is a veteran that trained here at Camp Butner. Thankfully, I wasn't in charge of it at the time. 21 years, 3 continents, 4 deployments overseas, and I still need my mom to introduce me to people. How about that? All right, so now for all the things you already said. This Veterans Day, we come together to honor and recognize American service members, past and present. This day of celebration and reflection originated in the signing of an armistice on Monday, November 11th, 1918, at 11 a.m. The exact day and time when all fighting ceased between the Allied nations and Germany, a moment that effectively ended World War I. The original concept was for the celebration, was for a day observed for parades and public meetings, suspension of business beginning at 11 a.m. to mark the occasion. The actual legal federal holiday wasn't approved by Congress until 1938 as Armistice Day. It wasn't until 1954, following the Korean War, that Congress replaced the name Armistice with Veterans. The holiday was amended to commemorate November 11th, a day in America when veterans of all wars are honored. Veterans are recognized as men and women who have or who are currently serving in America's armed forces. Excuse me. Veterans Day is a celebration to honor all of America's veterans for their patriotism, love of country, and willingness to both serve and to sacrifice for the common good. It's also a day for reflection and a day for remembrance. Whether you wear the uniform today or wore it decades ago, you, the veteran, you represent a fundamental truth. A truth that it's not the powerful weapons that make our military the greatest in the world. It's not the sophisticated aircraft, missiles, rockets, massive ships, satellites, or any other advanced weaponry that make us the strongest fighting force in the history of man. The truth is, the strength of our military is the spirit and skill of our soldiers, our sailors, the Marines, happy birthday by the way, the Air Force, and the Coast Guardians. It's at this time that I'd like all veterans of all services to stand or raise your hands so that we may identify these great men and women amongst us. Veterans, like those of you that were just standing, are part of a legacy that I'm extremely proud to be a part of. Those who contribute to this legacy must never be taken for granted. To honor our veterans, we must continue to keep our promises we've made by caring for those who are injured in the service to our country. We must support the families of our deployed, and we must honor and remember those who have made the final sacrifice. As was brought up earlier, many are under the assumption that Veterans Day is just for the living veteran, while Memorial Day is only for those who died while serving in some faraway land. In fact, legally, the Veterans Day is for all current and former servicemen and women, live and dead. So it's not often that a small town guy like me gets the chance to have the podium all to himself. And it's probably fitting that I'm in another small town, much like where I grew up. So if you'd allow me at this time, I'd like to speak the names of a few veterans that have been especially important in my own life. Specialist Brett Hershey, Private First Class Norman Snyder, Captain Michael Fiskus, Master Sergeant Michael Heaster, Specialist John Mankey, Private Philip Wickersham, Lieutenant Colonel Norman Wallace, Sergeant Herman Sellens, and Master Sergeant Brian Hicks. There's so many more that deserve our thoughts, so please take a moment and reflect on the ones in your own life that you'd like to pay tribute to. From the Korangal Valley in Afghanistan to the deserts and villages of Iraq, the rice paddies of Vietnam, the Chosin River in Korea, countless battlefields in Germany, Normandy Beach, Midway, Flanders Field, and Belgium. Our veterans answer the call every time without fail. They serve in places that are hell on earth. They don't just serve, they fight, and they win. To our enemies, know this: no matter what ocean, city, or cave you run to, if you mean to do this country harm, our servicemen will find you, fix you, and arrange a meeting with whomever you call God. There's truly no greater fighting force in the history of this earth, and I pray for any men that would test our resolve. Looking beyond conflict, our veterans have provided disaster response and humanitarian service to typhoon victims in the Philippines, earthquake victims in Haiti, tsunami victims in Indonesia and American Samoa. They serve in Iraq and Syria to this day, helping local citizens develop and advance their communities. They provide medical and dental care in countries around the world, like Belize, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and countless others. Your National Guardsmen drill wells in Africa and provide clean water to those without any running water. They mentor farmers and build new schools in developing nations. They even entertain children at orphanages in Kyrgyzstan. I'm looking at you, Sergeant Ham. And when not deployed overseas, our National Guardsmen serve on hurricane duty, tornado responses, winter storm evacuations, and were instrumental during the recent COVID-19 pandemic. Most don't know this, but when a National Guardsman is serving on a response at home, they're there voluntarily. And every time, without fail, your National Guardsmen answer the call and serve tirelessly and help the people most in need, people around them. I am so very proud to be counted among those men and women that answered that call every time. Our veterans serve and continue to serve long after they take off their uniform. They're seen across the nation supporting our troops and their families when they go to war and welcoming them home when they return. They volunteer and they serve in jobs that give other veterans the care they deserve. And when America's heroes are laid to rest, they're there as a reminder of their courage, sacrifice, and service to a grateful nation. Oftentimes I've been asked, how can I help? What can I do to support veterans in my community? I'm going to leave you with three things. Number one, reach out and ask how they're doing. Too often, veterans come home with wounds that aren't easily recognizable. Many of you here have heard the statistic that 22 veterans a day commit suicide. Through much work and diligence, the DoD and the VA are continuing to work to reduce that number. But one of the most effective ways to help is just to call the ones you know. Veterans, call your buddies you serve with. If you don't think they're okay, just call and ask. A simple hand reached out can make all the difference. Number two, encourage service in the military to your young people. Only 5% of Americans living today have ever served. That number continues to decrease as we lose those from World War II and from Korea. Today's military is coming from an ever-decreasing pool of families. These families serve generationally. where service in the military has become the family business. As proud as I am of these families, they can't continue to shoulder the load themselves. Talk to your young people. Talk to them about service. Number 3, live a life worthy of their sacrifice. It's often been said that our veterans joined not because they hated what was in front of them, but because they loved what's behind them. Think back to the weeks after September 11th. That's the America they love. The America that works together, reaches across the aisle, and stands up for what they feel is right. They reach out and offer a hand to their fellow man. Our servicemen and women didn't raise their right hand and swear allegiance to any particular party, ideology. They raised their hand and said, "Take me, take my time, send me where I'm needed, take my life if you must, but take me." Once our veterans put on the uniform, they ceased to be Democrats or Republicans, liberal or conservative. They stopped being black, white, yellow, or brown. We all became green. Once we put on the uniform, they became brothers and sisters in arms. Part of a family not born, but earned. They gave up birthdays, holidays, anniversaries, the best years of their lives. All while their families sacrificed, right along with them. I challenge each of you, next time you find yourself thinking of how can I support the veterans in my community, start with living a life that's worthy of the sacrifice. In closing, to the city of Butner, thank you for letting me be a part of today's events. And thank you for welcoming the soldiers that are training on Camp Butner. We're very thankful to be part of such a special place. To the veterans, you've done your duty. To your families, to your communities, to your fallen comrades, and to your country. You've honorably served your nation with great honor and distinction, and we could never say it enough. For your service in war and in peace, thank you, and God bless you. God bless our servicemen, our servicewomen, and God bless the United States of America.